Greetings once again with our oral history microphone. I'm Ray Mofield, and we're visiting in Benton today in the home of Mrs. Retha Myers, Mrs. Walker Myers of 807 Poplar Street. First of all, I want to thank you, Miss Myers, for letting me come.
You're welcome.
It's a real pleasure to talk with you, and we'll start off by asking about your family. Were you born in Marshall County?
Yes, sir. I was born in 1904, about 7 miles east of Hardin, Kentucky.
7 miles east of Hardin. Now, that's over just beyond Jonathan Creek.
That's right.
Yeah. Hardin, Aurora, I guess we
That's right.
call
That's
it
right.
today. Now, what was your dad's name?
James Monroe Morris.
M-O-R-R-I-S.
That's right.
Okay. So when you married, you didn't get a new initial.
No, I didn't.
All right. And your mother's name?
My mother's name was Virginia Bell Frizzell.
Frizzell.
And I remember one grandparent, her name was Mary Morris, my dad's mother.
Uh-huh. Mary Morris, so that takes us back to another generation.
That's right.
And the others you weren't fortunate enough to
No, I don't remember
be
those.
acquainted with. All right, so in that part of the county, that really wasn't terribly far from where my dad was born, in the neighborhood of Olive, I guess it was. And as a matter of fact, I was born near Barnett Cemetery on Jonathan Creek, so that wasn't terribly far.
That's right. That's right. That was all in the neighborhood, you might say.
Mother and Dad are both buried there, and my sister's buried there. So I'm pretty familiar with that part of the county. As you say, it's my neighborhood.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, you were born in 1904. Now, at that time, what school were you scheduled to attend?
It was a little one-room schoolhouse known as Stringer.
Stringer School.
Stringer School.
I've heard of Stringer School a number of times.
It was located back off of the road. There wasn't any highways then, just just dirt roads. And our mode of travel was in a wagon or buggy or walk. We didn't have any cars and no highways.
Oh, I well remember when they built what is now Kentucky 80. They first numbered it 98. My uncle, Kelsey Warren, married my mother's sister, Vera.
I knew them.
You knew them. And they lived not terribly far this side of Jonathan Creek.
I know where they lived.
And, of course, they were right on the highway. And I believe that was 1937. When they built that road. I remember my uncle worked on the bridges. He finished concrete. And we were amazed at that road. And they made the bridges a little wider than they did the ones on, what was then 95, now US 641. The old road there had been built in 29. And 8 years later, they just built a much nicer highway. But in your days, you were lucky to have gravel, weren't you?
Yes, that's right. Most of the roads were just dirt roads.
I can also remember that era. We lived in Callaway County for a time. Dad rented farms in various places, and I know one of the roads we lived on was not graveled. And we thought roads around Hardin, which were all graveled,
were good roads.
Were good roads. They really were.
That's right. They get chug holes in the winter.
Do you remember anything about any of your teachers?
Yes. Dexter Clayton was one of my teachers at Stringer. He was a real young man, looked about like John.
She's pointing over here to her grandson, and that's Mitch Lampkins's boy.
Yeah, that's right.
I met him at homecoming last year at Murray. He's a fine-looking young man. I hope he comes to Murray State.
Well, he might. I don't know yet where he's going.
I think Mitch sort of would like for him to.
I think so.
Of course, he can go about anywhere he wants to.
That's right. That's right. He sure can.
Well, very good. So you had Mr. Clayton.
Yes, I had some other teachers, Miss Nell Johnson, and we only had 6 months of school then. You see, we started in June, and we got out long around Christmas time before the bad weather started.
Yeah.
And
I remember.
then the schools consolidated. I finished 8th grade there, and then the schools consolidated, and it was called Aurora High School. So that's where I went to high school. Went to Aurora.
Oh yes, that high school was in operation when I was in high school at Hardin. I know Glenn Warren, who was my uncle's brother, but about my age, graduated from Aurora, same year, I guess, that I graduated from, or he might have been a year later. It was long in there. Anyway, Aurora operated till over in World War II sometime.
Roy Tumler was my high school teacher, and Addie Fawn. Addie Fawn was an English teacher there at Aurora when they...
I can remember entering a debate tournament, and Aurora had a team debating against us. And if I remember at that time, Joe Duke was the debate coach. And he later was superintendent here in
That's right.
Benton. Well, you had some wonderful times there. What did you like best about school?
Well, I guess...
You one of those arithmetic guys?
Oh, I liked arithmetic.
Oh,
I really
now,
did.
I was always the fellow that liked to spell and read and geography and history, but I didn't care so much about arithmetic.
Well, I couldn't remember history much, and but I liked arithmetic. I really did.
And counting money at a grocery all those years, it made it nice.
Come in handy.
Yeah.
Sure did. Sure did.
Yeah. Very good. Do you remember what a typical day at a one-room school was like? We called it time books or something like that.
Yeah, that we did. Well,
and you'd start out and
with the first grade. See, they had to teach all the grades from the first grade on down.
Did they have a little program at the first? And I know in the one-room school I went to, the teacher would have us sing America or something, and
we did.
Pledge allegiance to the flag, and
we did.
Then everybody sat down and they'd ask for the first grade to come up to the recitation bench.
That's right. That's right. And then the second and third and on down, whichever grade you was in.
Have you seen what Dr. Traylor and, well, I guess the school board and the administration is trying to do out at the high school building?
I saw the picture in the paper.
Well, that's real nice. They took this old Griggstown school, which is one of the few left and probably was in better condition than any of the others, and they moved it out there and they've rebuilt it as nearly as possible.
That's right.
Just like it was.
It looked nice. I have been out there.
I had the privilege of walking through that with Dr. Traylor about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And it brought back some fond memories. You know, those schools didn't have lunch rooms, and of course...
well, we carried our lunch.
Yeah, and the teachers were awfully busy with 50 to 60 or 70 students or more. And how they ever did it, I'm not exactly sure, but we learned about as well as they do now, I guess.
I think we did, too.
Couldn't study physics or chemistry.
No, there's lots of subjects that
we wouldn't have gotten to that till high school anyway.
We had reading and writing and arithmetic, though.
And the basics made all the difference.
That makes the difference.
Yeah. Well, that's real good. That's interesting. So the teacher then kept calling for, did you have a morning recess period?
Oh, yes. About 9 o'clock, and then we had a noon, lunch
you'd have a lunch hour.
And then in the afternoon we had one.
You could play a little bit, and then over in the afternoon. School was usually out about 4, wasn't it? So about 2:30, you'd have an afternoon recess period.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever run off at one of those periods?
No, I didn't.
Well, I made the mistake of doing that one time, and the teacher was Hugh Hurt. It was over in Callaway County at a school called Stone. And I'll tell you, he whipped me till I can feel it now.
I guess I was too scared of that.
Well, there's a bunch of boys got together, and we made up a big plot. I was going to be the fox, and they'd be the dogs. I'd run off, and they'd chase me, which we did. Every one of us got our pants warmed up. Well, those were great days. Now, what did you do for or play in some of those games? You remember any of them? Or?
Well, we played ball,
Mm-hmm.
and
Did you ever play
jumped the rope,
jump the rope,
and played hopscotch.
hopscotch?
And I don't know.
The worst one I remember, especially for the small children, was one they called Pop the Whip.
We played that too.
And you know, you get some little fellas on the end, and it just about jerk them in two.
That's right. That's right.
And then there were always things that we'd do to make a little money, to buy a few books or whatever the PTA needed. I don't know if they called it a PTA then, but that's about what it was. And generally they'd have a pie supper.
We had those sometimes.
Did you ever make a pie? Or your mother did, I
My
guess.
mother did.
Yeah.
Yes,
And the boys would buy those pies.
that's right.
Then they got to eat with the girls who
We'd
brought
have,
it.
we'd have box suppers too. Have a whole
Yeah.
lunch in there.
Have more than pie. You'd have fried chicken and
Just have a whole
a
lunch.
good meal.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what about, did you ever put on anything like plays?
No, we didn't have much time for that. I don't remember plays in
Now, we
when
didn't,
I was in the.
I don't
Well,
think,
now we did in high school, but we didn't in the grade
in the
schools.
grade school, we used to
Had-
put on what they called a Christmas program. And they'd have us reciting or maybe singing Up on the Housetop, Reindeer Paws, out jumps good old Santa Claus. And it wasn't very much talent, but I guess our mothers thought it was pretty
Oh
good.
yes, oh yes, I imagine.
And then over in high school, you did have,
Yeah, we didn't in high school. Sometimes we'd have. Sometimes some of them would recite poems, and some would. I don't know.
do various and sundry things.
Uh-huh.
Now, how did you meet your husband?
Well,
His name was Walker Myers.
Walter Myers. Well,
I remember him well when he was sheriff, but of course
Yeah.
that is years after you'd met him.
well, you know, my daddy was a farmer, and so we lived it. We helped on the farm,
Mm-hmm.
and after they got older and not able to run the farm like we for once did, well, we girls came down here to work at the hosier mill.
I believe my mother-in-law said she worked at the hosier mill.
Yes,
one
I
time.
think she worked when I did.
Uh-huh.
And so we stayed with my cousin, Zela Bryan, and Walker's family lived across the street.
So
and-
he was from Marshall County too, but they lived in Benton.
They lived in Benton.
Uh-huh.
And we met, and he would take us to work in the mornings. His sister would ride with us, and he'd come pick us up in the afternoons. And so that's how we met.
He got to looking at those blue eyes, and he decided maybe this was a real treasure.
I imagine that's what happened.
Yeah. All right, so you got married, and did you live here in the county most of the
We
time,
lived-
or did you go
we-
up to Detroit? Or
No, we didn't. We did later, but we lived here in the county, and he farmed for the first 2 years. You see, Mr. Myers, his daddy, had left the farm and gone to work at Ferguson's. You remember Ferguson's?
I remember that store. Yes.
Well, you see, they sold farm implements,
Mm-hmm.
and Mr. Myers put those farm implements together. That was his job, working at Ferguson's. So Walker ran the farm,
Mm-hmm.
but after a few bad seasons,
Crop years.
crop
weren't
years,
always
yeah,
good.
one year it rained till he couldn't get nothing out, and then the next year,
didn't rain any.
didn't rain any, and so we couldn't hardly take that. So he decided he'd go into public work, and he went to work at the Ford garage. He worked there for quite a while, and then he was deputy sheriff a while, and he decided he'd quit that, and we went to Detroit and stayed. I don't guess we stayed but about 3 months up there.
Mm-hmm.
But then he came back then to take the job of an unexpired sheriff. And so
Mhm.
Judge Gregory called him and told him to come, if he would take it, to come home. So he came. And he was sheriff 2 years. There was 2 years left on that term. And so and then he ran for sheriff, and he was elected.
Everybody liked him.
Yes.
So he won the race.
He won the race, and so he was sheriff 4 years. That made him 6 years,
6 years. Oh, well,
all in a stretch.
that was maybe a record,
Well, I
because
guess
sheriffs couldn't succeed
they
themselves.
couldn't succeed themselves, and so he was sheriff 6 years, and
I know my dad always thought Walker Myers was about the best sheriff we ever had. So
thank you. I appreciate that.
yeah, he really liked him, and evidently everybody around did. Now, that moved you in from the farm into the city. Do you remember anything about how you started housekeeping? Did you have?
Well, we just had a few things. We didn't have to have everything then. Start off.
You didn't
We had
start off with a $10,000 mortgage and
no, we sure didn't.
ranges, washers, refrigerators, dryers.
No, we built a little 2-room house across the street from Mr. Myers's, and we lived there for a long time, and we just had the essential things that you need to keep house, and it was heated with wood, with a little wood stove.
You burned wood just like your
Burned.
own farm.
That's right.
Well, now, what kind of cook stove did you have?
Well, we had a wood cook stove, and
Did you think life was terribly hard then, or did it seem?
no, I didn't think it was hard then. I thought it was doing all right.
Mhm.
But the economy kept changing, and that would put us, that'd change our
Sure.
way of life and everything.
You
And,
made a little more money, and
Mhm.
everybody else made more money, and as you say, the economy expanded, and
And
so everybody's life today is much
It
much
got out of
better
hand.
than it was then in some ways.
yeah, that's right. That's right.
Now, along the way somewhere, you had children born.
Yes. They were born in that little house we lived in. And Sam is the oldest,
Mm-hmm.
and so
Sam Myers, who incidentally was also sheriff.
he was sheriff 2 terms.
Mhm.
He ran and was elected, and then he had to wait 4 years,
Yes.
and then he ran again and was elected again.
Mhm.
But he ran for the 3rd term, but he got defeated that time.
Mhm.
So then he sells cars. That's what he
But
does.
he
That's
did-
what he's always done in between.
Yeah, he did win twice, which is
That's right.
quite a record. Not very
well-
many people could ever say that.
Well,
Now, Sam's your oldest.
Yes.
Were there any other boys?
No, Sam and then Jane, and 2 years. There's 2 years difference in their age.
Now,
And then-
Jane, was that Gravy Lampkin's wife?
That's right. She married
She
Gravy
was the
Lampkin.
oldest girl.
Girl, uh-huh.
Okay.
And then
And that's
that's their
grandson.
her grandson.
Her grandson.
Uh-huh.
Over here on the television
That's
set.
right. That's right. And
Well, and Gravy Lampkins was a great friend of mine. We went to college together at Murray. And I remember one thing he said to me one time. I just was speaking to him once when I saw him. And he used to buy quite a bit of advertising for me. He liked basketball games. And I said, well, how's everything going, Gravy? And he said, well, I'll tell you this, Ray. I'm living a lot better than I was raised. Well, of course, I could say exactly the same.
well, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
All right, now you had, what, were there 2 more girls?
And she married Stan Williams,
Mm-hmm.
and Nancy. Nancy married Hudson Phillips.
Mm-hmm.
And
So you,
and Jane, Mitch had 3 children, and
is he working with the church?
he's pastor.
Uh-huh.
He's pastor of
Well, that's what I was
of the
thinking he
Southside
was.
Baptist Church in Talladega, Alabama.
Now, that's in the general area of Birmingham.
Birmingham. It's about 30 miles from Birmingham, and he was pastor of the Calvary Baptist Church in Childersburg,
Mm-hmm.
but he resigned that one, and then
Mm-hmm.
he went over to Talladega,
Yeah.
and that's where he's at now.
Well, now,
Yeah.
how many grandchildren do you have?
I have 10.
10. That's a goodly number.
Yeah, but I've got 12 great-grandchildren.
Oh, now that's even better.
That's
record.
that's greater.
Yeah.
And
Well, do you notice any difference in how you treat your grandchildren, let's say, than you treated your own children? Some say they were.
well, the difference is, I think that grandchildren have the right name. They're grand, and you don't have the responsibility for them like you did your own, and all you have to do is play with them.
Yeah. Oh, that's a wonderful explanation. And so we don't put quite the same amount of discipline on them, I
That's
guess,
right.
as we did.
That's right. Hmm.
And as you say, they're grand, and you can just enjoy them and have fun.
Hmm.
Well, tell us what you think have been the biggest changes in Benton since you came here. Now, there's
Well,
a big highway
this-
running one-way street there in front of your house now, and it's just solid with traffic. That wasn't true when you moved here,
Oh
was it?
no, not even when we moved to this place. It was so quiet down here. It was almost scary because we'd been living out on the highway. You see, they
Mhm.
built the highway, and that was big trucks and all going up and down all times of the night.
Mhm.
And it's the highways and then the sidewalks. There wasn't sidewalks in Benton at first,
Now,
and there's just been so many changes. There
Yeah.
wasn't anything down below the railroad.
well, when you first
And-
came here, they didn't have water system, did they?
Well,
Or they
we
might.
didn't have it out at Myerstown where we live, but
Mhm.
but they did have here in town.
Did
I think.
have
I
here in
think they
town,
did here in
okay.
town, and we didn't have lights. You see out there,
Uh-huh.
they run the lines out there after they annexed the city limits out that
Uh-huh.
way. They put in electric lights.
Now, this Ferguson store, was that about where National Store is
That's
now?
right where it's at. Uh-huh.
And they sold just about everything. didn't
That's
they?
right.
Did they,
Uh-huh.
they had old dry goods
Mhm.
and
Farm implements.
farm implements, kitchen stoves, heating
and
stoves.
everything. Uh-huh.
I
We
believe
live-
they sold furniture. didn't
We
they?
live close to a general store out there, close to well, Mr. Albert Inman ran a
Uh-huh.
general store there, and he just had almost everything.
Uh-huh.
And so we were
Well, that's fine.
far from.
Well, do you have any special stories you could tell us about odd things that you remember that may have happened over the years?
Well, in about 1918, it was a hard winter, real cold, and stayed cold a long time, and Tennessee River froze over.
Now that would really be something.
It was something.
Unusual for the Ohio.
And my daddy and a neighbor, they got out there in an old house and built a sleigh. And they made the runners out of some old ties, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And they hewed the front of them off. And they put wagon wheel rims on them to make them last. And they had the horses shod, you know, ice shod.
Put
and
corks on the shoes.
And
yeah.
hitched them to the sleigh. And we drove to Aurora. They made it the size of spring seats on a wagon.
Uh-huh.
And there was two of them. And we rode to Aurora on the sleigh
I
to
bet
see the
you
river.
thought you had really done something.
Oh, we did. And the way we kept warm, we heated some bricks and put down in the floor.
And you had a lap robe.
Had a lap robe,
Mm-hmm.
and we kept good and warm. It was cold weather.
Yeah.
And
I heard my dad say one time it snowed December the 7th and stayed on till nearly April.
I believe that's when it was. It might have been when it was, because that was about, you know, it started snowing, and it just stayed on and on. And
Well, that certainly was an unusual experience.
it was. It really was.
Never happened in my memory, but that was something that very few people have seen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we got time for about one more story. Now, do you want to make any kind of a statement?
But let me see now. When see, Walker started the Ashland oil business here in Marshall County.
He did? Well, now,
Yeah, after he got out of the sheriff's office.
I had forgotten that.
Yes,
I remember it now.
And Sam was in service.
Uh-huh.
But when he got out of service, he drove a delivery truck
Mm-hmm.
for a while, and then Walker's health gave way on him, and he had to quit, and
Mm-hmm.
Sam took over the business there for a
Yeah.
while.
How long has
That was
Mr.
before-
Walker been dead?
He passed away in 1952,
That's been a long time.
34 years,
Now,
was that
you
right?
worked in the grocery store.
Well,
Places.
well, I worked at Thomas Morgan's. I was working there when he had to go to hospital,
Mhm.
and I quit for then. But then I went back up there, and then, but one day I had been to the grocery, and I had asked Mr. Tanner if he needed help, and he didn't then. But later, he'd been calling for me all day one day, and I was out at Miss Mars's. Miss Mars was sick, and I was out there. And I came to the grocery that evening. He'd been looking for me all day. Well, I went to work over there, and I worked there about 34 years. I quit last April.
What a record. Isn't that great? I wish we had more time, but we're going to have to sign off.
We could talk a long time.
Oh, we could. We could do another half hour. I mean, if you want to, we will.
Well,
Thank you very much, Miss Retha Myers. This is Ray Mofield. We return you now to our studio.